In this video, I want to go over the stereo expander, stereo gate, and stereo noise reduction. I also have an analog recorder here to make noise, which will help demonstrate what the noise reduction is doing later on. I have noise going into my output that's being modulated by an LFO that's in the shape of a saw down, just to help demonstrate what these dynamics processors are doing. Right now we don't have any of them on, so when I hit a key, we hear the noise turn up from the sawtooth and then gradually decay down. Let's look at the expander first. So the expander is very similar to the stereo compressor in that it has a detection mode between peak and RMS. It has the same sidechain filters, and it has look ahead. It also suffers from the same latency. But in this case, I think that's fine, because I don't know why you would ever necessarily be doing parallel processing with this unit anyway. Thus, the comb filtering you would get from the latency between dry and wet doesn't really matter. Right now I have this set up to behave as kind of a gate. The ratio is at 10:1, which is its max, and the threshold is set to a level that detects the noise pretty much at peak amplitude. My attack and release are as fast as they go. Let's listen to it. If we change it to RMS mode, you can hear it respond accordingly. A little bit more slow, a little bit more average, just as you'd expect from root mean square. I want to compare the stereo expander now with the stereo gate. The stereo gate is to the stereo expander the same way that the stereo limiter is to the stereo compressor. It has a parametric EQ instead of the filters, just like the stereo limiter, and it lacks the peak versus RMS detection controls, and it also doesn't suffer from any latency. But again, I don't think that really matters in this case, since you really wouldn't be doing any parallel processing with this unit. Let's listen to what it sounds like. Compared with the expander. So it's a little bit sharper. It probably has an infinite to 1 ratio, but I don't really have a way to check, so I'll just assume it does. Our attack and release controls for the gate work exactly the same as they do for the expander. Turning up the attack takes the gate longer to open up once it's past the threshold, shaving off the attack of the waveform. And the release makes the gate take longer to close, giving the sound more release. The delay time just delays the response of the attack and release, or I should say that the attack and release respond the same. They go through the same exact degree of time, but that time just happens a bit later in milliseconds. Not really sure what the purpose of this control is. I don't know a technique that would necessarily utilize this, but it's definitely something that I'll explore in the future. Finally, we have this polarity control, which is the coolest control on this thing. It makes this unit probably my favorite thing for sidechain compression or ducking. It just flips the response of the gate. So instead of opening, it's now closing once the signal gets past the threshold. And then it opens back up just for a second once it gets back below the threshold. So listening to this. Regular gating, flipped. Now if we were to change the attack and release times, So I hope that is understandable just from the listening example. The last thing that I want to go over is the stereo noise reduction. This is just another gate with a low ratio. So right now I have some noise, and I'll bypass this so we can hear it. I turn on the noise reduction, it drops out. But it drops out at a ratio of 2 to 1. So if I were to actually lower this threshold, then I would be changing the point at which it's ducking the signal. I'd be changing the graph. And let me actually demonstrate this with the expander. So if I have a signal that's at like -40, if I were to lower the threshold, it's changing how strong essentially the noise reduction is at that point on the graph. So all the way down, we can still hear the noise a little bit. Now if I go to the noise reduction tool and also put it at the threshold at -40, and let's compare the two. They're about the same. If we really wanted to get exact details, I would need to throw in a different waveform other than noise, since noise is a bit jumpy. But I think for the demonstration, this is fine. So let's put it back up to 22. We're getting a lot of cancellation now from the noise reduction tool, but this is only a gate. So once the signal gets loud enough, the noise comes right back. Versus playing that without noise. So that's what the noise reduction tool does. It's just kind of a quick and dirty gate that reduces noise at a low threshold, at a low ratio. There's almost no use for it given the expander exists, but it's faster than setting all of the other controls of the expander. And like the expander, it does take a sidechain input, but you're probably better off using either the gate or the expander if you're trying to do some sidechain decking. So that's it for this one. Thank you for watching.